Even though we're still waiting on the 2020 election results as a whole, there are a few proposition results regarding abortion that I want to talk about. The first is a proposed amendment to the Louisiana Constitution about abortion, and the second is the 115th proposition in Colorado. Unfortunately, we have some good news and some bad news, but let's just start with the good news because, that's better for everyone. Looking at Louisiana first, they had this proposed amendment to the state constitution. Nothing in the constitution shall be construed to secure or protect a right to abortion or require the funding of abortion. That is essentially saying that abortion is not a constitutional right, something with which I completely agree. It's also saying that you can't force people to pay for abortions using taxpayer money, something I also agree with. And this is very important because Joe Biden not only wants to codify Roe v. Wade into law, but he also wants to repeal the Hyde Amendment. So thankfully, this amendment was passed. And it wasn't particularly close either. 62% of voters voted yes. But as you could imagine, liberals and pro-abortion activists did not like that. As a matter of fact, Mother Jones said that Louisiana passed an amendment to pave the way to decimating abortion rights. Which apparently they didn't read the amendment, because it clearly says that abortion is not a right. So you're not decimating abortion rights, you're saying it doesn't exist in the first place. But as a good rule of thumb, I have found that if you don't know where you stand on any position, just look at Mother Jones and take the opposite. If Mother Jones is upset about this amendment, then that must mean it was a good thing. Unfortunately, however, we do have some bad news, and that is about Colorado's Proposition 115, which did not pass. 60% of voters voted against it. Before I say exactly what Proposition 115 proposed, I want to show you the reaction that many pro-abortion advocates had that it was even proposed in the first place. Looking first at Whitney Woods, she said that Colorado has already voted on ridiculous abortion restrictions multiple times, and said we don't want them. It's insulting that these extremists keep trying. She said this while she was on maternity leave from Planned Parenthood, which is a little bit ironic that you have someone working at Planned Parenthood on maternity leave talking about extremists who, want to limit abortion in some way. Again, we haven't even seen what the limitation was, so bear that in mind. Here we have Fawn Bullock from Progress Now who said they're hoping they can slide this under the radar and really cast it as a compromise between anti-abortion and pro-choice voters. But that's not what it is. This is a violation of Roe v. Wade. So based on those two reactions, you might think that Proposition 115 would perhaps limit abortion to the first trimester, or something along those lines. But that's not what it did at all. Proposition 115 would outlaw abortion in the state after 22 weeks. So essentially all it did was ban late-term abortions with the exception of if the life of the mother was in danger. So it was a ban on late-term abortions. But that apparently was too extreme for Colorado, and they voted fairly overwhelmingly against it, which is really disappointing to me. I thought that maybe Colorado would have a reckoning and decide to actually reverse course a little bit. Keep in mind that at 22 weeks, a fetus looks like this. The clump of cells argument is always a bad argument, but it's even worse in late-term abortions because that's clearly not a clump of cells. That is a human being, it's a human life. And Colorado has voted to allow that human life to be ended virtually at any point for any reason. Now I recognize that viability at 22 weeks is not a guaranteed thing. The viability rate is actually fairly low, but it does exist. And I don't think your right as a human is dependent on your chances of living. Now at this point, if you're pro-choice and you've somehow made it through this much of the video, you're probably going to tell me that most late-term abortions only happen because the life of the mother is in danger, or there's a medical necessity, or something like that. To which I respond, you are uninformed. This study that you can find on the Guttmacher Institute website, which is a very pro-choice organization I might add, points out that data suggests that most women seeking later terminations are not doing so for reasons of fetal anomaly or life endangerment. This is specifically talking about abortions after 20 weeks. So we have here from a pro-choice organization that most late-term abortions are in fact elective. They're not because the life of the mother is in danger or fetal anomalies, they're because it's an elective abortion. That's it. It's an elective procedure. And since Proposition 115 in Colorado did not pass, that means that their old abortion restrictions are going to remain, which are essentially nothing. Again, from the Guttmacher Institute, they point out that the restrictions on abortion in Colorado are that 1, it's not covered in insurance policies for public employees, 2, the parent of a minor must be notified before an abortion is provided, and 3, public funding of abortion is only available in very extreme cases. What do you think is missing on this list of restrictions? If you guessed a gestational period of pregnancy, then you are 100% correct. What this means essentially is that Colorado is one of the few states in the United States where you can get an elective abortion virtually whenever you want. The hope was that Proposition 115 would change that and make it at least more akin to many other states. The fact that you can get a late-term abortion, elective late-term abortion, whenever you want in Colorado is pretty ridiculous. And it's abhorrent. I don't really know how else to say it. Proposition 115 unfortunately did not pass. And it wasn't particularly close, which is a little bit depressing to me. So if you're looking at a new state to move to, and you're looking specifically at abortion restrictions or something along those lines, don't go to Colorado because they have virtually no restrictions. Maybe consider Louisiana, because they said that abortion is not a constitutional right. Now, at the point of this recording, we still don't have the result for the 2020 presidential election. It does look more likely that Biden is going to win, which is unfortunate, because if he has his way, as I mentioned previously, he will codify Roe v. Wade into law, and he will repeal the Hyde Amendment. Both of which are things that I do not want to happen whatsoever, because that will kind of enshrine abortion as a right when it really isn't. And it will force taxpayers to pay for abortion because the federal government would then demand it. Both of which are things I do not support. So we'll have to see what happens. What are your thoughts about these two propositions? At least one of them passed, so, a 50-50 isn't bad, but unfortunately, Colorado has not yet woken up on the evils of abortion. Give me your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to check out one of these videos that perhaps you haven't yet seen. As always, thank you for watching, sharing, and subscribing. I'll see you next time.